Hola, mi amigos y amigas, ¿cómo está? Muy bien, la vida es bella. I wish I could do this whole review in Spanish, another language I need to progress in, honestly. But anyway, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Top 10 Favorite and from what I believe are the best performances by some of the greatest actors in cinema. See, we're starting from 10 and then working our way up to that numero uno spot. And of course, my friends, I have seen every film that is attainable by these artists. So remember, these lists are full of accurate passion. September, the time for San Gennaro feasts, Greek food festivals, angry people because summer is almost over, but also it is officially American Hispanic Heritage Month, and the theme for this year is Unidos, the inclusivity of a stronger nation, which is so awesome. And I thought to myself, which artist can I honor this month? And there are so many great ones to choose from. Literally, I had a hard time choosing. But I decided to talk about a national treasure that broke through so many barriers and became one of the greatest artists of the golden age of Hollywood. His name is Anthony Quinn. Manuel Antonio Rodolfo Quinn Oaxaca was born in April 1915 in the lovely city of Chihuahua, Mexico. Side note, apparently Anthony's father, Frank Quinn, rode with Pancho Villa during the Revolution. That's wild. His father moved to LA to become an assistant cameraman. Needless to say, it seemed the picture business would come around the corner for little Anthony. He was actually very religious growing up and thinking about becoming a priest, but after moving to LA and, more importantly, discovering the beauty of art, his life would be forever changed. But seriously, Anthony Quinn became a fantastic painter as well as sculptor, literally studying under Frank Lloyd Wright. Amazing, since Anthony dropped out of high school just to make money. Being a true artist, his mind raced to Hollywood. Off to Hollywood he went to star in his first film, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, which was The Plainsman, playing the role of a Cheyenne Indian who discovers Custer's gang. I just love the story that Anthony tells. In his big scene, the script says the native is supposed to ride forward to a fire and stay in camera. Cameras rolled, Anthony rode forward, saw the fire, got off his horse, and hid behind the tree. DeMille went crazy and said Quinn was messing up everything. You're supposed to stay there and stay in camera. To that, Anthony said, Mr. DeMille, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're doing. That fire I see is a fire made by man, and it's still fresh. A man must be near. So I gotta get off my horse to hide behind the tree so I can kill him before he kills me. Wow. And then you have a voice over to the side of the camera saying, Mr. DeMille, the boy is right. That voice was the star himself, Gary Cooper. So DeMille changed his mind, and that's the way it played in the movie. Genius how a 20-year-old Quinn already knew realism at the time of 1936. And that bravery and intelligence just speaks so loudly for the rest of Anthony's career. By the time he was 30 years old, he has played dozens and dozens of characters, from Italian gangsters, Mexican outlaws, Chinese guerrillas, Arab sheiks, and many more. But it wouldn't be long until he would get the biggest catapult into leading man status, and the juicier roles would just be coming right along. Anthony Quinn is honest to God one of the greatest examples of a long, illustrious career in Hollywood, starting from nothing to becoming one of the biggest names in film as well as theater. He has starred in over 250 plus films, which you can imagine how almost exhausting it's been for me to narrow it down to just 10. But man, what an honor it actually was, because you know what I love about Anthony Quinn? He said himself that he treated every role like Hamlet, meaning with absolutely everything he had. I guess we'll address a small elephant in the room. Not too big, but yes, Anthony Quinn was half Mexican and half Irish. I mean, Quinn, you know? But even so, he was really a man of his heritage through and through, and that's what made him so versatile with any ethnicity. There were literally so many performances that I just fell in love with, so I can't wait any longer. Let's go, my boy. Here are the top 10 best performances of one of the true greats, Anthony Quinn. Starting off at number 10, we have The Secret of Santa Vittoria, directed by one of the greatest directors and producers, Stanley Kramer, with Quinn playing Bombolini, a pathetic town drunk who is having the worst trouble with his wife, played by Anna Magnani. The town gets the update that the fascists have surrendered, so Bombolini climbs a tower to remove their flag in front of the whole town. They chant his name with love and pity, and the fascist government thinks that they appointed him as their new leader. He takes office as the new mayor of the city, practically, and then tries to hide the 1 million bottles of wine from the Germans who are trying to take over the village. Based on the novel by Robert Crichton, which was actually inspired by a true event, this film certainly has its moments of true joy, engaging dialogue, beautiful sets, and of course, a scene-stealing Anthony Quinn. He brings so much life to the character of Bombolini that despite his uselessness, he is utterly charming and just so fun to watch. The fight scene between he and Magnani is so great. Among all their dance sequences, Quinn earned a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor here, and yes, indeed, a nomination that was worthy when the Golden Globes weren't rubbish. Number 9, Last Train from Gun Hill. Call me crazy, guys, but I think this was one of the most effective westerns I've ever seen. I was quite surprised by this picture, directed by Western rock star John Sturges. It stars Kirk Douglas as Marshal Matt Morgan, who comes into the town of Gun Hill to seek justice of the rape and murder of his wife. His clue and evidence is a saddle that was left behind that he's sure belongs to his friend Craig Belden, played with such ease, confidence, empathy, and heart by Quinn. It's discovered it was Craig's son, Rick, who did the horrible crime, but Craig refuses to give up his son. So if Matt has to do what he has to do, Craig has to do the same thing by gunning Matt down. It is truly powerful. It certainly helps that blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo did the dialogue polish, but major thanks to the heart-pounding performances of Douglas and Quinn in their third film together. Quinn is just so heartbreaking because of his objective that it's his son and he'd do anything for him, even after committing rape and murder. It's horrible, but he makes you so empathetic and makes you understand his plight. When you talk about great westerns, not many people talk about this one, which really is a shame. If you love westerns like I do, please do see Quinn in this one. Number 8, Lawrence of Arabia. The grand epic and arguably one of cinema's top 10 greatest treasures. Based on the testimony and autobiography 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, a British lieutenant who is ordered to potentially stop Prince Faisal's revolt against the Turks, instead decides to become an ally and fights with them. Lawrence recruits the help of Auda Abu Tayi, played brilliantly by Quinn, to help lead his tribe into battle. Quinn's passages in this film are frickin' epic, and Quinn really sunk himself into this role, like he always does. But he did his own makeup with that nose, and even provided his own robes. Director David Lean often mistook him for just an extra, and apparently sent Anthony Quinn's assistant to tell Anthony that he'd been replaced by this newcomer. Anthony Quinn also earned a Golden Globe nomination and British Academy Award nomination for Best Actor here. And honestly, even though his screen time is not exactly plentiful, he frickin' packs a punch in you. Number 7, Gotti. Oh man, talk about one of the best and entertaining film adaptations of a real-life mafia boss like John Gotti. We will not talk about the John Travolta one, please. No. But here, John Gotti is played brilliantly by Armand Assante, and it goes through his journey with the Gambino family and becoming the ultimate boss he does. Anthony Quinn, in another Golden Globe nominated performance, plays Neil Delacroce, a real-life underboss of the Gambino family, dear friend, mentor, and father figure to Gotti, who does everything he can to help him. However, it comes to a point when John completely messes things up when he kills a made guy, even though the made guy killed one of Gotti's own. You still just can't do that. So the bosses, of course, have a meeting to discuss taking Gotti out. That's just what happens, but Delacroix basically pleads to not have him taken out, given his reputation and what good he brings, and how much of a son he is to him, which leads to one of the most poignant and chilling scenes in the film, when Delacroix shows up at the bar and meets Gotti. He says, "I've clipped a lot of guys in my life. Friends, I wouldn't agree, but I never questioned the orders. If Don Carlo has said you gotta go, I would have come here today with these 2 zips, and you would go. You never break the rules." Former mobster Michael Francis, part of the Colombo family, who has his own YouTube channel as well, knew Gotti and Neil Delacroix and has often praised this film among his favorite and most accurate films of the mafia life, as well as praised Anthony Quinn's chilling and yet empathetic portrayal here. Number 6, Requiem for a Heavyweight. I honestly truly wish this could be much higher, and it probably should, because this performance by Anthony Quinn is just utterly masterful. Based on the play and televised TV special written by Twilight Zone's genius, Rod Serling, Anthony Quinn plays Louis Mountain Rivera, a heavyweight fighter who is looking at a chance for a better life. This whole cast is stellar, but Anthony Quinn is just beautiful as Mountain. Anthony has told this story many times, that he went off to do this film during his 2-month hiatus of filming Lawrence of Arabia, and right up until the minute they were going to start shooting, Quinn could not find the character of Mountain. He just did not know what to give him to make him a damaged fighter still shooting for the moon. Then his stand-in started talking to him, saying, "Don't worry, baby. You're Anthony Quinn. You got this. What do you want? Some water?" His stand-in was a boxer, and he'd been punched harshly in the larynx, which gave him that broken windpipe voice. Quinn listened to him and said, "You just answered my prayers." He had Mountain like that, and that voice just gave him more depth, and it makes us just yearn for his success. One change just made everything. I think Anthony Quinn was vastly snubbed for his performance here, and this whole film is quite snubbed. You can definitely see the elements of this heartbreaker in Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler, which I love as well. But this performance is one for the ages. Quinn himself has said that he loves majority of all characters he's played, but this one can be among his personal favorites. Number 5, Wild is the Wind. Did I mention before this whole top 10 list was extremely difficult? I just want to get that across because Anthony Quinn's performance in this film is just a tad bit more than the previous 5 because of how much heart is in this. Again, he always treated his characters with the same amount of love and understanding. He plays Gino, a Nevada rancher whose wife just died, and he goes to Italy, meets her sister, played by Anna Magnani, who looks just like her, and marries her. Over the course of time, he teaches her English, but his drunken stupor shows her that he can't get her sister out of his mind, and it takes a scandalous turn when she gets to know Gino's ranch hand, played by Anthony Franciosa. On paper, of course, his character is such an abusive, hard man, which he is, but he grows exponentially by the very end, that we just wonder if they will make it. The scene where Franciosa wants to leave the ranch, but Quinn is basically breaking down and pleading for him not to go. "Oh, if you want the car, I'll give you a car. What do you want? Just please, don't leave. You're like my son." It's just truly heartbreaking. Quinn earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Leading Actor for this, and yes, indeed, wholeheartedly deserved. Number 4, Lust for Life. Of course, Lust for Life. Anthony Quinn in his second Academy Award-winning performance for Best Supporting Actor as famed real-life impressionist painter Paul Gauguin. The second collab between Quinn and Kirk Douglas is definitely the best, and it's always amazing to see these two together in this film. All of their scenes are powerful, influential, and just invigorating. Quinn had said he didn't even play this role. Paul Gauguin did. Like, he heard voices and felt Gauguin almost took over. I mean, it can happen for sure. I mean, remember Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon? The role definitely meant something to Quinn, since he himself was a visual and truly expert painter. And you just totally believe him as Van Gogh's inspiration. It's been rumored that Quinn's performance is the shortest one to win the Oscar for Best Supporting, being at like 8 minutes. But in true accuracy here, his screen time actually times in at 22 minutes and 40 seconds. Just saying. Number 3, La Strada. Again, I wish this could be much, much higher. Federico Fellini's film here, translated into English as The Road, is one of the greatest films ever made. Certainly one of the greatest international and, more specific, Italian films made. It tells the story of a simple-minded young woman, Gelsomina, played by a majestic Giulietta Messina, who is basically sold off by her mother to a solo traveling street-performing strongman, the great Zampano, played by Anthony Quinn. He takes her on the road with him, and she becomes his partner in their performances, where Zampano's big thing is to tie chains around his chest and to burst through the chains with the strength of his chest. The Road is definitely a perfect title because it shares the journey for both Gelsomina and Zampano, and how so many thoughts, dreams, regrets, discoveries, and devastation can happen. I have seen both the English dubbed version and the original Italian subtitle version, and honestly I love them both, since Quinn and Richard Basehart spoke English, while Messina spoke Italian, so hey, they both work for me. Anthony Quinn, my God, he is unbelievably complex in this film, and it's one of the most mesmerizing portraits he has ever given. Quinn was already at a crossroads in his career at this point, and he was already an Oscar winner, but he was continuously still typecast as supporting ethnic characters, usually villainous yet intelligent characters. So he traveled to Italy, since a lot of his colleagues, Kirk Douglas and Henry Fonda, felt more passionate and life-changing films were being created there. Fellini and Quinn really didn't get along. Quinn said he broke him down, almost demanded things out of him that took more and more of his creative energy, which, looking back on that, Quinn has stated it was among the best experiences he needed as an actor, because it was like going back to school. Quinn originally had 25% of profit shares while making this film, until Fellini saw the final cut, which premiered, and said he sold Quinn's shares for $50,000, since he said it was one of the worst films he's made, and apparently didn't think it would make money. Just real quick, what a bastard thing to do. I just gotta say. But anyway, looking at his character of Zampano, we see literally a strong man with all hard-bitten strength, right? And that's really the contrast and the point between he and Gelsomina. I won't spoil it, because you need to see this film. The final scene with him alone in the dark on the beach, it is one of the most memorable scenes in film that I always get up and applaud, because it's at that moment we recognize the power of a human being changed. Number 2, Viva Zapata. The classic, slightly hard to get film about the Mexican Revolution of Emiliano Zapata, starring Marlon Brando as Zapata and Anthony Quinn as his brother. This was directed by master Elia Kazan, who met Anthony Quinn right at the perfect time when Quinn joined the actor's studio in its humble beginnings, right alongside Brando. He and Brando have worked in many improvisational scenes together, and it was only meant to be for them to be working together. Fun fact as well, after Brando opened Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway and then went to work in front of the camera, guess who took over the role of Stanley Kowalski on Broadway? That's right, Mr. Quinn himself. And critics raved about his Stanley, just the same as Brando. This is the perfect project for them together. Kazan, being the methodical director he was, really wanted Quinn and Brando to drive to Mexico together and grow a stronger bond. But they didn't really talk. They really didn't get to know each other that well. Same thing on set. Get to know each other. Talk. That didn't work either. So Kazan just said, okay, F it. He would whisper to each actor privately opposing thoughts. For instance, he'd say, hey, Anthony, just watch out for Brando. He doesn't think you're a good actor anyway. He said your Stanley was worthless. And then he did something similar to Brando. Yeah, Tony said he should have had your part. He says you're not capable of playing Emiliano. All right, everyone quiet on set. Rolling and action. Oh snap, can you feel the fireworks fly between these two? With the most iconic scene in the movie of Quinn at the bar, drunk, basically taking over the village with his drunken arrogance and cruelty. Brando walking in, Quinn pointing that sword. Be careful what you say to me, brother. Brando literally pulling back Quinn's hair, hurting him, fighting back with his declaration of being a general, and he's going to take what he wants. It is spellbinding and quite terrifying at the same time. Quinn absolutely deserved his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor here, as he became the first Mexican-American actor to win an Oscar. Now, here are some honorable mentions. Onassis, the richest man in the world. The made-for-TV film which earned Anthony Quinn an Emmy nomination for Best Supporting Actor, with Raul Julia, one of my personal favorites, as Aristotle Onassis, telling his story of his rise to power. Anthony Quinn plays his father, who becomes so disenchanted by his son, expecting more out of him, and then, after being arrested, we get the feeling that he truly does care for his son. It is indeed a good film because of its performances from Quinn and Julia. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the 1956 adaptation made in Paris, which is also called Notre Dame de Paris, with Anthony Quinn in the beautiful role of Quasimodo, and Gina Lollobrigida as Esmeralda. Quinn was still speaking English here, while everyone else was speaking French, but hey, it gives it a more accurate feeling. The film itself really isn't that effective to me, although Quinn is still beautiful in the role. He's not my favorite Quasimodo so far, but there are amazing things about his performance here that are definitely moving. I do commend an actor who is very, very sick with food poisoning and gets in costume and pushes through anyway. That's a pro that I applaud. And of course, it helped build more character in building this character. The Guns of Navarone, a freaking awesome Oscar-winning flick for best special effects, often regarded as an action flick, but really has a deep anti-war message. But I mean, it's just done so incredibly well, and I was not expecting how good it was going to be. Based on the novel, I'll tell you briefly. It tells the story and action of 2,000 soldiers being trapped on top of the Navarone island in Greece, and there are 2 gun cannons that are preventing their rescue. So the British Navy hire a 6-man team to destroy the guns and rescue the men. Impossible? Well, watch this and you'll indeed find out. Anthony Quinn is just great here as Stavros. And honestly, it's one of the first films I remember seeing him in when I was like 12. And that heart-pounding scene where Quinn looks like he's going to betray the team when they're caught, and then starts breaking down in sickness on the ground to distract the Nazis, and then boom, the team take control of the Nazi group in the room by grabbing their weapons. It is wonderfully shot and thrilling every time I see it. Warlock, another great Western that I don't hear too many people talk about. My favorite thing about this Western, of course, is Anthony Quinn as Morgan, the gunslinging assistant to Henry Fonda's Blaisdell, who appoints himself as marshal with good intentions to actually stop crime, but with a still big hint of corruption. Anthony Quinn is so loyal to Fonda as his right-hand man, but his drinking and his womanizing are what could be his downfall. Add on the characteristic of a club foot for Quinn, and you have an actor chewing up the scenery for our sincere enjoyment. Some people say Quinn is a bit over the top here, but I never felt that. It's the Wild West, and even with his horrible, arrogant actions, He's so real. Again, Western lovers, check this one out too. The Shoes of the Fisherman. A nearly 3-hour epic, if you can call it that, based on the novel by Morris West, which has Anthony Quinn as Kirill Lakota, a Ukrainian archbishop of Lviv, who is set free after being kept prisoner in a Siberian camp due to political pressure. He is then sent to Rome to be made cardinal. All goes reluctantly well until the Pope dies, and then he is given the position of the Pope while nuclear war is breaking out between China and the Soviet Union. It's quite exhausting, isn't it? But Anthony Quinn gives such a simple and understated performance as a reluctant man of faith who just wants to work with the people. But it's always the most reluctant who end up becoming the most effective leaders, right? The novel was very much mirroring the actions, events, and influence of Cardinal Lviv and Bishop Lakota, as well as the political influence of JFK and Pope John XXIII. The problem is that the film came out in 1968, where the major studio collapse was in full effect, and MGM was still in the game, of course, but this film was not on the radar for the public to see, which resulted in its box office bombing. It's not the easiest of films to sit through, I'll admit, but there are, again, a lot of moving and thought-provoking things about it. This one also is regarded as one of Quinn's personal favorites. Number 1, of course, Zorba the Greek. Or rather, Alexis Zorba, the absolutely iconic film of the ages with Anthony Quinn in his second Academy Award-nominated performance for Best Lead Actor. This indeed is the most recognized, iconic, famous, and without a doubt, his best work. Everyone I know, when I mention Anthony Quinn 9 to 10 times out of 10, they think Zorba the Greek. Amazing feat, since Anthony Quinn, of course, was not Greek. Everywhere Anthony Quinn went, every appearance he made on television, the band would always play the dance from Zorba. It's so beautiful to be recognized for that. And if you don't know the movie, where have you been? It is based on the novel by Nikos Kazantzakis. I'll tell the story briefly. A Greek, but mostly English author, played wonderfully by Sir Alan Bates, finds out his deceased father has a land with a mine, so he thinks that will create some income as he combats his writer's block. But right when he arrives to the island of Crete, he meets a peasant named Alexis Zorba, who in real life is based on a mine worker named George Zorba. Alexis says he has a great experience in mining, and he convinces Basil to take him along his journey. And from there, it gets wild. Yes, we all remember, the fun dancing, the fantastically brilliant charm of Zorba. But all of that is earned because of all the dark, tragic, truly messed up events that occur throughout this film, especially for the widow. Oh, rest in peace, Irene Papas, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it, because this film is that damn good to be seen and owned. Anthony Quinn, man, he is just so brilliant as Zorba. He has said Zorba is about 80% of himself. So sure, you can say not a lot of acting is required, but there is a lot that goes into a character like this, such as the action that takes place between these two. There is so much poetry in the screenplay, which, thanks to Kazantzakis, but it's Quinn's performance that just elevates it with Shakespearean and contemporary idolatry, like, "You got everything except one thing, madness. A man needs a little madness, or else, he dares never to cut the rope and be free. They say age kills the fire inside of a man. Those are goddamn lies. I've got enough fight in me to devour the world." I remember 14-year-old me certainly being happy seeing everything Zorba and Basil talking about and doing. It really brought out the Greek I have in me. The finale, after all is lost and demolished, there is just nothing more iconic than to hear Basil say to Zorba, "Teach me to dance." "Dance? Did you say dance? Come on, my boy. And they start the Sirtaki, which was made and formed for this film, and began a whole dancing phenomenon. Like back in 2007, the Guinness World Record confirmed the longest chain of Sirtaki dancers dancing to Zorba the Greek in Cyprus. And then that record was broken in 2012. Incredible! In Quinn's own birthplace of Chihuahua, there's a statue of him as Zorba doing the dance. Quinn's portrayal was so iconic that in 1983, he would reprise Zorba in the musical adaptation on Broadway simply called Zorba. He certainly will always be known as the great Zorba the Greek. You know, not just Zorba and Streetcar were his Broadway credits. He also wowed audiences alike with the production of Becket playing King Henry II and Sir Laurence Olivier playing Becket. An actor of the stage can usually transfer to a phenomenal film actor, which, man, he certainly was. There were many artists who have said he was difficult to work with, saying he had a bit of a temper. Some folks call that passion and just the obsession of giving a character justice. But yes, Quinn did have rough upbringings involving his own father, where beatings weren't unusual. It is tragic to say, but years and years later, Anthony's sons, Francesco and Danny Quinn, talked about the beatings they received from him. And it seems they didn't really mean so much to Anthony, the beatings I mean, since he received the same growing up. He had married 3 times and had 12 children within those 3 marriages. I mean, guys, not every artist is perfect. Of course, we all have demons, and it looks as though the real pure fact is that Anthony Quinn truly loved his family. There is enough to really appreciate Anthony Quinn for, such as his activism, his work in art, which a lot of museums all around the world have done a lot of exhibitions on his work, and it's really truly dazzling. Plus, Anthony's widow, Catherine Quinn, starting the Anthony Quinn Foundation, focusing on the educational mission of bringing up young artists, featuring the great tutelage at one point from Edward James Olmos and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Anthony Quinn was truly a man of such spirit, energy, love, compassion, and adventure. He's been given all the awards possible, including, of course, the Cecil B. DeMille Award, which really comes full circle since his first wife was the daughter of Cecil B. DeMille. He has done so much within his life in which some people have never accomplished. It is amazing because he really is like Zorba and fought for what he wanted to his every last breath. Oh, now wasn't that fun, my friends? Now, you tell me, please, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances from this incredible Sirtaki dancer? Oh, guys, please comment below. Tell me everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't be shy. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you like this, please click like right here. With all my love and gratitude, please ring that bell so you can stay updated on more to come, which there will be plenty more to come. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and come on, let's dance!